Giving credit to the savior, so you know I'm approved. Whole team Olympiads, cause I run with the best. Send the shots, not a problem that I need to address. If the message leave them blue, then they left it on red. Olive Garden rappers, most of y'all just here for the bread.
Welcome back to the Grounded Podcast. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Marissa.
And today we're going to be talking about friendships.
Friendships of all kinds.
I think this topic is kind of like, not like really a sensitive subject, but I think this world has a different idea of what a friend is supposed to mean. Not even talking religious versus non-religious or not, just the idea of having a friend has just changed so much, and non-related a little bit, but even like the idea of like relationships in general, like whether it's a marriage or marriage or a friendship or professional relationships or other personal kind of relationships. So
people are always looking out for just themselves, or they're trying to kind of get ahead of like I'm gonna get you before you get me,
or like if you don't,
it's like self-serving.
Quite honestly, though, and like, forgive me for the way this is going to come out because it's the only way that I can think of it, but I do think that any friendship or relationship that you're in should have some kind of beneficial purpose in your life. Not to use that person, but to have they need to serve some kind of purpose in your life. I'm in my personal relationship with my partner because it serves a purpose. Like,
it's not depleting you, it's adding to you.
Even if it's something, there's a give or take. So if you're in a relationship, no matter what the relationship is, and there's no give or take in that relationship, then you need to remove yourself.
What's the fruit of the relationship?
You need to remove yourself from that relationship.
Because how I keep saying people bear fruit. So is it good fruit or bad fruit that's being, sown in your life? What are they pouring into you? And it doesn't have to be like, monetary or any benefits in those regards, but kind of like not making you go backward, like you know what I mean, making you go backwards, making you feel worse, like making you just be more negative than you were. That's not somebody that needs to kind of be around,
and then not all relationships are meant to last for forever. Some of them come in your life for a season or two, and then it's served its purpose, and and then you don't always have to end every single relationship on a negative note.
Because a lot of people
you can just grow apart from someone. And quite frankly, our relationship has been through so many different seasons, so many changes.
I was gonna say at one point we kind of grew apart, but then we came back together. That was something I was gonna say. Sometimes the season that you're in, maybe you guys shouldn't, you might go into a season of isolation, but later on when you both mature in us, it was like we had a lot of things that we needed to deal with.
I mean, maturity would be that's what I was best phrase for it too, because I think I was 15 or 16 when I first met you.
Oh yeah.
So maturity the
dynamic of the relationship does need to grow. So even if you need to like separate yourself so that you can grow, period.
Right.
And maybe, there's some friendships that we've matured out of, and there's the season of your friendship, you might need to some friendships, like a season might expire and you guys may never reconnect. Sometimes you may reconnect. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Sometimes you remain friends with somebody through the growing process. And that goes, I know we're talking about friendships, but that really goes, in life in general. Yeah. So I think it's important for people to realize that. And I think part of the reason how you said it's kind of a touchy subject, a lot of people, although the idea of friends kind of like has changed, or relationships have changed in general, people are also very, I don't know how at the same, because what I was about to say, they contradict each other, but it's true. People are very selfish, but they're also very defensive about their friendships. So it's like, how are you gonna be super defensive and like extra, you know what I'm saying? Codependent and protective, but you're also being selfish. Those two things, like they're on two opposite ends of the spectrum, and they're both not the way that they're supposed to be.
Well, there's also the example of you are friends with someone for so many years, and the first encounter that you have with that person, that's not a good encounter, then it's like, let's just throw out a number, 10 years of friendship just goes out the window off of, whether whoever's in fault doesn't really matter. It's just, how can you throw away something that you've held on to for so many years?
Well, sometimes you have to. Also.
Sometimes you do have to, but
just not
depending
over,
on
like,
depending on what the
Don't be so prideful that something small that can be worked over. You know what I mean? That it's maybe just an imperfection of people. Maybe it's something that they're struggling with and they need to grow through. You know, and to just cut them off. You know how people. This is like relationships, not even friendships, but there's very much like I want to do that. If you tell me that I'm doing this right, like people don't like accountability. People don't like boundaries. A lot of people struggle making boundaries, but people also struggle respecting other people's boundaries. So I've seen people set boundaries, and then the person they're setting boundaries with take it the wrong way, and that ruins a friendship, rather than recognizing, okay, this person needs to set a boundary for whatever reason. You know, maybe they're healing, maybe whatever. You don't know. Even though you're their friend, you still don't know every single little aspect of their life.
People,
you know?
The biggest thing is people don't make rules in their relationships. And I'm not talking about sitting down with that person and be like, rule number 1, don't hurt me. Rule number 2, no, not those kind of rules. But just like you were saying, boundaries is a form of setting rules in your relationship. Because if you tell someone from the beginning what your intentions are and what your boundaries are, the minute they cross it, you have two things to decide. You
discuss, and I think a lot of people don't. That's part of it as well. That people, when maybe their boundary is crossed or something, they don't talk about it. They immediately, I'm gonna cut them off. Have a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, your perception of what happened may not really have been, what they saw on their side, or maybe they didn't recognize. Maybe they didn't realize they're doing it. So I think it's important to have hard conversations in friendships. Also to kind of hold each other accountable, not only in the friendship, but in their life. Because a lot of the issues how I think that we're talking about, a lot of them are a moral issue. People aren't necessarily the most loyal not because they don't want to be loyal to that person, but because that's a character flaw. You know what I'm saying? And most of it is a character flaw. And just how we were saying before, that your friendship should kind of like benefit you in a way, or
not benefit you, be beneficial,
be mutually beneficial. The word does say that iron sharpens iron, and I know that is meant for like believers, as far as having those conversations and holding each other accountable, but that's also in life as well. If you're maybe, let's take it to marriage, because that's what I thought about, because Anthony talked about it, I believe. He was saying, like, for instance, if you're trying to be faithful to your spouse, right, all of your friends are not. And you continue to hang around those friends, you know what I'm saying? They're not helping you get rid of the temptation of that thing. So that's why we kind of stress that it's important to be mindful of those around you. And this is kind of more on like a surface basis, but it still applies in this instance as well.
No, because to that point that I was gonna make was, I had a friend one time, and I was friends with this person for like years, and for the time that we were friendship, it was mutually beneficial towards each other. But when the friendship truly got tested is when I realized, is this a friendship or is this like a business transaction? And a lot of times we don't realize that some of our friendships are business transactions, that they're there for that moment, and as long as your card keeps swiping and getting approved, they're always going to be there.
Yeah, and I think also love, the way that God describes it, is selfless, and that does not exclude friendships. So it's not, you know how a lot of people are very transactional, just how you were talking about, but kind of like, okay, you didn't do this for me, so I'm not going to do this for you. Even though they're your friend, they could be your best friend, you know what I'm saying? They kind of see it as like, I guess transactional would be the best way to describe it. And it's kind of sad sometimes when I think about it, because I've had friendships that maybe they started off in one way, because in one season of my life I was doing one thing, but as I continued to grow, the dynamic shifted. But it's kind of like the other person needs to shift as well. You know, some friendships maybe start when you don't have much going on in life or whatever, and maybe one person is the more successful one or whatever, and when the person who maybe didn't have something going on for a while, they start to have things to do, they start to have businesses, they start to grow, and you know what I mean, become successful. If the relationship isn't on solid ground, that friendship can kind of falter, because the one who was maybe successful first doesn't know how to handle the other one's success. They're used to you being, you know what I'm saying? So and that I keep saying it's in a lot of relationships like that, but it's important to kind of check in with your friends as well, because there have been, you know, we've had many check-ins over our friendship, just as my other friends, I've had many check-ins just to be like, hey, are we still good? Like, you know, do you ever feel this way, or do you ever feel that way? And I always encourage you guys to like tell me, like, you know, and I think that's a good thing for people to do, but I think a lot of people don't do it because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear
absolutely, because you never want to be confrontational with someone you call your best friend or your friend. So sometimes it's hard to have some of those conversations that you need to have with them. And I know I struggled with that for a bit. There were just certain friends in my life that I didn't want to say the wrong things.
Like you were tiptoeing or walking on eggshells, kind of.
Well, not all the time, but when a problem came around, or when something that I felt strongly against, but I didn't, you know, like I didn't want to say anything, so I'm like, I'm just gonna go, you know, I'll get over it, you know, kind of a situation. But it never worked out that way, because ultimately in the end that friendship ended because it ended because I didn't say or speak up at times where there were issues that I should have said something, and I didn't say anything. So, you know, I think one thing about any relationship that you're in, like if you're not comfortable enough to speak to that person when they're wrong, or even owning up to when you're wrong and apologizing for a mistake that you made, then that's not a relationship. Is that really your friend, or is that really a relationship that you want to hold on to? You know, the Bible talks about in Ecclesiastics, it talks about, and it really just describes our friendship. You know, when one person's down, you know, is that person that you have to the left or to the right of you going to be able to pick you up when you're down, or vice versa when you're down? Like, do you know if that person's going to be there to pick you up the same way that you were there for them and their lowest points? So I think it's important to think about those things as you grow into certain relationships. It may not be the first thing you think about at the beginning of the relationship, which is understandable because you don't know where the relationship is going. But if you find it that you find this person is someone that, you know, you're starting to care for, or, you know, there's just something about them that, you know, draws them to you, then start asking yourself those questions to see if they are of value to your life, or to even their own lives as well too. And if you can't answer those questions, with the responses that that are appropriate, like, if I'm down, will they pick me up? If I call, will they come running to be there for me?
You can even ask God to reveal to you the true intentions of a person. And to your point, how you were saying like about the value of, the relationship or the friendship. I was thinking that a lot of people hold on to friendships a lot longer than they should, because maybe they're lonely, or they don't want to be alone, or maybe because of the status, even though that friendship isn't really, a good environment for them. Maybe, let me think. Maybe as you grew as a person, you no longer act the way that you used to. Maybe you used to drink and fight all the time and do all of these things, and you don't do that anymore, but you're around people who do. The word said, I pulled it up. It says in Proverbs 22:24, don't befriend angry people or associate with hot-tempered people, or you will learn to be like them and endanger your soul. So that just tells you also that the character, and the word says good company corrupts good character. Bad company corrupts good character. That just speaks to the fact that, you can be, as changed as you want to be, but if you continue to stay in those spaces, eventually you'll start to develop some of their habits, some of their characteristics, some of their ways. You know what I'm trying to say? So some friendships can hinder your growth. Some can help your growth. So it's just important to evaluate your friendships. And that's the same for all relationships in your life. But when it comes to your friends, because I think that sometimes people are closer to their friends than they are with their family, or with anything else, or with their spouse, or whatever. But it's very important to, I don't want to say be careful, but be careful about the people that you keep around you, especially if you're trying not to stay stagnant in the same place,
Yeah, in order for you to grow, you have to evaluate. And in order for you to evaluate, you need to be completely honest with yourself, with the people around you, because it makes no sense to lie if you're trying to grow. You're holding yourself back. There was one thing that I wanted to share. Philippians 2:3 says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. You know what I'm saying? So,
which means you can't be selfish, just how I was saying, they're selfish.
Or try to be friends with someone to impress them. You know what I'm saying? Or do things to impress other people so they can stay around.
Yeah, exactly. That's manipulation in itself. And also the word I just saw the word says, this is the NLT version, I believe. It says there are, and it's in quotes, friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. And I think that also pertains to what you've been talking about. So being destroying each other, sometimes you can destroy yourself trying to hold on to, relationships that maybe they expired, maybe you were never supposed to have, maybe they're just not fruitful and beneficial for who you're supposed to be, who you're supposed to become. So
if someone were to ask you, how do you check in? Because you had mentioned that you check in on all your friendships. So what do you do to check in? What do you say?
I'm trying to think. It also depends on the friend and the way that check-in goes. But kind of how I'll just ask you, I'll be like, you're good, you good? And then you'd be like, yeah, and I'd be like, but like, are we good? Just making sure.
Yeah, I
like,
just feel like for us, it's just when things start to feel, there's like an awkward feeling when
like
when
if
something's wrong.
Yeah, something, you will feel it. Like, I think
not everybody does. That's what I'm saying. Like, how do you check in with your friends?
first I would pray for discernment, to be honest, because discernment is very important. But checking in with your friends, maybe checking in, I think I do it when I maybe start to feel like, not necessarily feel like there's something wrong, but maybe think like, oh, I don't, you'll do something and maybe somebody reacted a way and you're like, oh, I hope I didn't,
them,
yeah. So it's just kind of like a check, like, oh, I hope like you didn't mean, that it wasn't this way or whatever. I also kind of just check. Usually it'll kind of be like a life check, like what's going on in your life. And usually you can tell if someone doesn't really want to like, you know what I'm saying, really like talk or whatever. Sometimes I won't even check in. I'll maybe have a few honest conversations with them. Maybe if they did something that I didn't necessarily like, I'll have a few conversations, but then I'll kind of just observe the way that it, the way that it unfolds. So that's why I was saying it depends on the way things go. Like with people that I'm closer to, I'll just be like, hey, are we good? And like, you might be like, yeah. And I might be like, are you sure? And it might be extra to do so, but I also recognize that different people have different perspectives, different people have different emotions, different people,
But that's where the honesty comes in too. If you're asking, if I'm asking you, are you okay? Are we okay? And you're adamant with saying yes, that this was your room and opportunity to say X, Y, and Z.
So then like, later on down the line,
if you bring it, I'm not. My ears are closed.
Yeah, like
I don't.
We had this kind of. And another important thing is in friendships, when you do have issues or things that you've overcome, and you guys forgive each other and decide to still be friends, don't keep bringing it up.
Right.
And that's the same in relationships as well. But don't keep bringing it up, because it's like, okay, we talked about that.
We healed from it.
We grew past that. I thought we were good, so now you're bringing it back. So now it's like, you lied. We weren't good. Why did you say that we were?
Because people use it as an argument point. Like,
yeah, they'll be like,
in order for me to win an argument, I'm like, but you remember when you did?
You remember back in '86? You remember back in '86 when you left me, and it's like, bruh.
So that means your point that you're trying to argue is not valid. Because but also if you need examples from 20 years ago.
But even like 2 years ago, that means you were holding on to it even after you said that you let it go. I can't do anything about that when we discuss it and you choose.
I mean, but not even holding on to it. It's like you archived your conversations with your friends. Like, all right, man, December 26th, me and Marissa were talking and she said this. So now fast forward 2 years, it's like December 26th, 2000.
And it's like, why you didn't say nothing?
Why you didn't say nothing then?
Yeah.
Like,
you'll notice.
And I appreciate people, even if you don't want to talk about it then, and be like, look, something is wrong, but I
need to evaluate, or I can't do it
before I say something to you, because I know we've done that a lot.
Like, I don't want
to
say what
they're completely different. So if you come back to me and it takes 2 weeks or 2 months for you to bring the conversation back up, it's okay, because you've already told me I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
And it's not up to you to decide when that person is ready, but at least I know, like, there is a problem that at some point we are going to address.
Yeah, and I also believe that when things in the friendship aren't quite right, I know you said people don't see it or notice it. I think some part of them does. You know what I mean? Maybe they started to feel weird about maybe something that their friend does.
If they're self-aware, yes, absolutely.
Well, even if they're selfish, they'll start to feel like that place doesn't serve them anymore,
But I see where you're coming from. Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. I've observed people's friendships outside of my friendships. And, there was even a time where I don't know if it's okay for me to say this, but you had a friend and I was just a little off about that one person, but you didn't see it, at the time. Or maybe you did. I don't know. I'm not going to speak for you.
I think I know what you're talking, but it wasn't that I didn't see it, because if you remember the first time I ever talked to you about this person, I was like, ugh, I don't, but then we were put in a situation where we started spending more time together. So it was just kind of like, this person they're from the other, I feel like I'm kind of giving it away to people who know, but yeah, it wasn't that I didn't see it. It was just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it.
But do you think do you think in that, because it's okay to not be immediately, for lack of better words, attracted to someone the first time you meet them? Like, you could have just been having a bad day, you could have just been, your mind could have just been somewhere else, so the next time you reintroduce yourself to that person, like, you see a completely different side of it. So do you think it could have been something like that, where when you initially met that person, you just weren't ready to receive that person, and then things changed? Okay.
But generally, I didn't mean to say it like that. But okay. Generally, the people that I have not fallen out with, because I don't like to say that, because it's not like we fell out, that I don't necessarily talk to anymore, a lot of them, at first, I was like,
so you knew?
Yeah, at some point. And I think proximity was probably a lot of it. Like, when you spend a lot of time with people, you eventually like, oh, okay, like, I understand, and X, Y, and Z. But it's not even, say I didn't know, right? And I'm not, let me be clear, I'm not saying anything is wrong with this person. I'm just saying we don't really talk anymore. That's what we're referring to. We just, just in case you watch it, ain't no beef. It's no beef. Like, we good. We good. I'm just saying we don't talk anymore. We don't. It's true. And I've told you this as well. Say I didn't know, right? I feel like still in that friendship, there would have been, and I'm pretty sure on the other side as well, there might have been like, maybe in the beginning that I just kind of like looked past. Maybe something was said, or maybe something was did, and it was just kind of like, oh, I don't know about that. But then I was just kind of like, okay, well, that's not my thing, so whatever. So that's what I mean. And so when, just to your point earlier, when you said that you've lost friendships because you didn't say something when something happened, I think in those situations, how I said, like, maybe something in the beginning might have happened, and I kind of was just like, okay, but I didn't say anything. So I didn't check in, I didn't check in to be like, hey, not even necessarily be like, are we okay? But to maybe express how I felt about it, So, yeah. Because I know we've both had friendships where it's like, we know, but like we don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always known. I just choose to ignore it.
That's what I was.
But it wasn't like a, whatever kind of ignore. It was kind of like, I was like 17, 18, 19. So to me, it was for it, because I always knew you're here for a purpose, and right now I want to have fun, and you are the friend that has fun, so let's go have fun.
I also think, what was I about to say? Regardless, you still do develop to care for the person.
No, yeah.
So it does, that does play a role in it. And we were good friends. It's not like there's anything that's big that happened, but it's just, there were differences in maybe the way that we carried ourselves, or the way that we thought about certain things, that eventually it kind of came to a head, especially when I began to really seek God. It was kind of like, okay, I'm not really engaging in certain conversations anymore. I'm not really doing X, Y, and Z. We're still hanging out. But if God didn't want that friendship to happen, You know what I mean? I mean, to not to happen, but to continue on, at least not now and not in this season, it would come to a head. You know, sometimes God will let somebody, like, you know how in the Bible they talk about Pharaoh and how God hardened Pharaoh's heart. Sometimes God will do that so that you know what I mean? So that a situation does happen where maybe their character rubs yours a little bit more or something like that. So, you know, friendships are friendships.
I think for two things for me. One, when I choose to let someone in my life, I love hard in a sense. So to let go, like, I really have to sit there and evaluate, like, do I want to let this relationship go? Because I don't let it go very easily. Like
Can I overlook these
yeah. So there's only two people in my life currently that I'm no longer in those relationships, that they were literally the hardest relationships for me to let go. And from there, you know, there are times where, you know, like I get sad about it. You know, it's not, I'm like human. So
yeah,
it's
because
like
I look
think
back
about,
too,
because
like
I sit there and think about memories, and then Facebook want to remind you of, you know, back in the day.
No,
so
it's true.
I
though.
see pictures and I instantly get triggered. Like, not because I'm holding on to something, but I'm just like, oh man, like, you know,
I be looking
fun.
back too, like I be like, oh my gosh, like we used to have fun, like we used to just talk all day. When I say
hard.
all day, like we used to talk all day long.
Because I love hard and I care too, and I always like I'm the type of friend, like, you like Mashani bail money, I'm like, all right, we gonna figure this out, like, how we gonna get this money. But and so that's why for me, when to let go is such a hard thing to do, but once I do let go, like, I know I made the right decision to let go of that person. So I think we should be asking ourselves constantly those questions and evaluating our relationships in every season to make sure that we're holding on to people that should be in our lives still. The biggest prayer that I went back in 2020 in 2021 when my life started to change, the biggest prayer that I've ever said to God was, remove anyone in my life
who's not supposed to be
there. And he did that. And man, when he removed those two people, I'm like, man, God, like, you couldn't have changed them so that way we could still be friends.
But the thing is maybe he will. But maybe he needed you guys to be separated so that you could like let go, you know. And even when you don't listen, he'll allow a situation to happen, like, which is what
he did.
Yeah, that's what I told you, like, to where it's like I can't overlook this one. Like, I literally have to address this. Like how I was telling you when that friendship like kind of separated or ended, God told me before, like, this is about to happen, and I'm like, nah, let me get ahead of this. So I'm like, you know, double check, trying to make sure it don't, and then it did, and it was like, okay, like,
but every relationship serves a season in our lives,
whether it's a long one
or
whether it's a short one, whether it's a intermittent one.
But no,
you know,
but I've always, you know what the crazy thing about it is, I've always prayed over our friendship.
You know, I didn't used to pray over friendship. So I also think like that probably probably was part of it too. I was just kind of like, oh, okay.
No, because let me tell y'all, this I don't fight for people.
Our friendship was
like
hard,
I don't fight for people. It's like you're in or you're out.
Yeah.
And when I'm ready to go, I'm done. And I think our relationship has, like, and that's the way from the beginning I was saying, like, has been through so many seasons, because we've literally had to fight in a non-physical way to push through to get to where we are right now. And for some people who's gonna ask, was it worth it, and all this other extra rah stuff, like, because that's really what's gonna happen. But it's like God has always placed, at least for me, God has always placed in my life, in my heart, through vision and dreams and stuff like that, people who were meant to be in my life past certain seasons. And you've always been one of those people, just by, you know, like, just, I don't even know, like, there was just something there your heart or the intention behind it or pureness or I don't know what it is, but
because when she said we had to fight, because we not gonna say we used to bump heads, but we just kind of used to be like, there was a lot of pettiness.
We would ignore it and sometimes not say anything,
and then it would come to the head, and then we're like, look.
Our biggest fight was back in 2015. I went to go visit my parents in Europe. And
wait, not you were putting the memory. Hold on, I'm trying to think. Okay, go ahead, tell the story.
I went to go visit my parents in Europe, and I was there for some time. And then after Europe, I went to New York because one of the friends that long-term friends that I had was living in New York at the time. Went to go visit her, and during that trip, like, I don't know what was going on with us, but
I remember, I don't know what it was about.
A combination of things that was going on, and it just got to the point to like where we were like, okay, well, either we're in this friendship or we're not. So
but that was in 2022, because not 2022. I mean, like, also we also had, like how you said.
Oh yeah. No, but I was saying our first one was back in 2015. Long story short, we had to work on our relationship, and part of working on that relationship was when I came out there to DC.
But even then we had like an issue.
But that's because we were working through stuff. So obviously things are still gonna happen, because it's not like something that happens overnight. Like, we were working towards fixing the relationship. So
in the
mix of that, there were.
Yeah. And there was a very important thing for both of us on both of our sides when we decided to continue our relationship or work on it. We were like, okay, I don't want it to just be me working. Like, we both have to work for this. It's not going to be just me.
No, but we literally asked each other.
Is it worth it?
Like, do you want to be here?
I think that's really what we said.
Do you want to be here? Because
if not,
it sounds like.
It just,
I know sometimes I feel like it sounds like we're in a relationship, but
it was kind of like, do you want this friendship? If you don't, then okay, because that's where we're at. But if you do, you're going to have to show me just as much as you want me to show you.
We cry together. We pray together now.
Yeah.
Like, like whatever emotion you could possibly think of going through with someone, we went through it.
Yeah.
And that's because we've allowed ourselves to be open and completely honest with ourselves and to each other. Like, when something's really wrong, we might not say it in that moment, but I know, like, Marissa's going to tell me. It's like, I know Marissa's going to tell me, or I'm going to tell Marissa, like, you know what, give me a few days, or I need a minute, and I'll come back.
Yeah.
And we respect that.
Sometimes we don't even have to address it. Like, if something happens, sometimes we don't even have to say anything. The other one will just be like, look, I know I might have came off like this, or I know that this happened. I didn't mean it, and I didn't mean it that way, or whatever.
Or no, even too, once it happens, or no, there have been times where we don't want to talk about it right then and there. A couple of days pass or whatever, however long it takes, and then we finally tell each other what's the problem, and then the other one's like, yeah, I know, I was just waiting for you to say something.
Or it would be a complete misunderstanding. It's like, oh, well, I meant X, Y, and Z, and it's like, oh, okay, I get that. So I think you have to, in order to have a strong friendship, you need to be vulnerable. Okay, you do. So I wanted to ask you if there's one takeaway for friendships or relationships or whatever, in order to maybe keep good ones or to strengthen ones that you have, or, just to evaluate them, what would it be?
The best advice that I can give us and anyone out there as well too is to pray over your friends. No, like,
I'm not laughing because it's bad. It's just
because that's really our response to everything, and people are gonna think like we're crazy or something. I don't know what people are thinking, but by now you should be able to tell that through any season, through any emotion that we go through, the first response is prayer. Because without God, like, we really can't go forward, and for us to be where we are now, like, we have to pray over each other, for each other, with each other. Like, we do all of it because, like, the other day we were talking about how we were going through spiritual warfare, and that morning before we started filming, I was going through spiritual warfare, and so were you. And immediately I text you, I said, when you get here, we need to pray together. And we did, you know what I'm saying? Like, pray over each other, pray together, because literally it's like, I can't be at odds with you.
Yeah.
Like, in the sense of, I don't want to be either. So if we ever get to that point, which I pray we never will, but if we ever get to that point, I feel like at that point our relationship would probably be over, because before we get there, I would hope that you and I would say something to each other. And yes, in my opinion, the fights that we've gone through were worth it, because if they weren't, we wouldn't be here. So if anyone is asking, they were.
Yeah, because sometimes that argument is maybe they don't know that they're doing whatever, or it's coming off in whatever way. So sometimes those I don't even want to say arguments, but like those moments,
indifferences,
you know, sometimes they're a mirror that you put in a person. Maybe that's why people get angry, you know, because they don't want to see, like, how you gonna tell me about myself, and like, okay, but I'm still gonna tell. If you cannot be honest with your friend, and your friend cannot be honest with you, then there is an issue.
Yeah. And balance. I think that's the last thing that we wanted to talk about too, is finding balance in our friendship. No one friend is more important than the other. I feel like if you call someone your friend, or you're in a relationship with someone, it should just be a well-balanced relationship. You shouldn't be one here, one down. Just in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it's equally spread around for whoever. But that's why I don't loosely call everybody my friend either. Yeah. I probably only have, so I realized the other day, because I know we were talking about this, like how many people I knew. I was making a list because I needed to do something for another business thing, and I was making a list of the people that I knew that I could reach out to, and I'm like, dang, I didn't realize I knew all these people. And then you were like, no, was it you or somebody else said, like, oh man, you have like a lot of friends? And I'm like, I don't really call these people my friends. Like, it's just like I know a lot of people. And then when I really sat there and been like, well, who's my friend? It's like on one hand,
because I've done that too, because I got like,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
if I'm going to jail right now, I only got one friend I can call.
No, but for real, and a lot of our friends don't live here anymore.
You know,
so a lot of our close friends, it was like
international, worldwide.
Like, all right, bye. Like, go ahead and leave me. But no, for real, I was even thinking, I was like, dang. So for the wedding, I'm gonna have so am I gonna have my bridesmaids walk down, and then they gonna run us in the seat? Like, how's this going?
Because I don't have a lot of but you know, one thing you just point out right now, like that our friends don't live here with us. I think a true testament on who a friend is is how far they're willing to travel in your time of need. Yeah, both you and I have literally gone on trains or a plane or bust a mission in the car for a couple hours to go to either each other
or to someone else. Yeah, but even another testament is your long distance friends. How are those friendships holding up? Are you guys not friends anymore because you're no longer in close proximity? Right. But
just be clear, you don't have to talk to someone every single day
for you to be close,
to validate how close your relationship is. You know, there were periods before where we would go like days or weeks without talking to each other, and then the minute that we talked to each other again, it was like no time has gone by.
Girl, I'm about to say a name. But one of my friends, she lives on the opposite end of the country. Like, my longest friend lives on the opposite end of the country, has a family, all of this stuff. So we can't talk every day. But we still locked in. Ain't no switching up. Like, that's just what it is. And that's a true testament of like, okay, this friendship, we built something on a foundation that's not just on, oh, I can just come to your house and we can hang out all the time. No, it's genuine. It's a genuine thing, right. You know, just like how when you were still here and I went to school, you know, so.
Yeah. You make time for the things and the people that you want to make time for. So I feel like if you value a person,
you'll make time for them. And
you'll make time for them. And I'm not saying you gotta drop money on everybody that you call your friend, because the time is not always monetized. You know, time could simply just be like, I know I have 6 million things going on in my world, but I just want to take just 1 second
Yeah,
to just see how are you doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter what, like, I'd be on vacation or across the country and be like, let me just check in. Like, Marissa, are you okay? I haven't heard from you today. Like, how's it going?
I talked to you this week or something.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's that simple. Like, that shows what you mean to someone.
You could even like play. I know it could be childish, but play phone games like with your friends that aren't necessarily there, and it's not like a conversation, but it's kind of like a point of contact. Like, I
do that to my dad. Like, my dad and I, we don't get to talk every day because he like runs an entire school. So for the minutes that he just gets a second, we'll be playing like pool on the iPhone games and everything, and then like that's just how we connect on a daily basis. Like, if he only has 5 minutes to play a game, like that's how we connect on a daily basis.
Just find ways that work for you. There's not a one size fits all for the way to handle your friendships. You have to figure out what works for you guys, what works for your schedule, what works for your lives, so I think that's a good little, that was like a few bullet points at the end.
So to take away, think about your friends, really think about the people you call your friends.
This just came to me, so I need to say it. You also need to evaluate what kind of friend you are.
We didn't even talk about that.
I know, because like we were just about to close out and it was just like, what kind of friend are they? And then so you need to evaluate what kind of friend you are. Are you always looking at, are they being a good friend to me, but you're not a good friend. Like, you need to evaluate yourself as well. I know we talked about other people and the outward, but you do need to check in with yourself too. Yeah.
No, that's good. Yeah. So
I'm
check in with yourself.
It earlier, but I just
So check in with yourself and sit there and evaluate the people who you are around and that you call a friend, not an associate, a friend. And if they don't bring value to you, if they're not someone that you can call on, to pray over you, to sit with you.
But even if they're not like,
well, I mean, it doesn't have to be just praying, but someone that you can call on.
Yeah, not someone that's just there because they're funny or because whatever.
Yeah.
When you're crying and you're in the dumps and all this stuff.
So when you're at your lowest.
Yeah.
If you can't call on them, then,
I don't know what to tell you.
I'm not telling you to end relationships because that's really not what we're saying.
But you felt it.
But you know that I know
you know that I know that you know what we talking about.
Okay.
All right, y'all. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Right.
We know it wasn't very it wasn't like meaty, but it's still an important
something that
topic.
We felt like to talk about.
Yeah. All right, you guys. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Say that again.
Okay, you guys. So make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And until next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Putting in work. I'm putting in work. I answer the call. They ask why I do it.